He is just one of the stalwarts of the flyweight division, the one and only Joseph Benavidez is here. Hi, Joseph. How are you?
What's going on, Luke Thomas? How are you, man?
I'm doing well, my friend. I am nice. It's nice to get in touch with you. Let me ask you, okay, can you pan up a little bit? Because I can see your nose and mouth, but not your face.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that better?
That is better. A little bit better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
So let me ask you, if I can. You've been with the organization now, Zuffa backed anyway, a little over 10 years. We had Ricardo Lamas on, same position for him. If I had told you you'd be in this position in 10 years, what would you have told me back then?
I would have been like, awesome. That's what we're working for. You know, it's still a surprise kind of every day when, you know, you see ads on ESPN and even your name and stuff like that, and ESPN in the backdrop. So it's still a surprise, and it's one of those things like you're grateful for, but you also, by being grateful, you realize like you've worked hard, and that's kind of what keeps you working harder is like, you know, it's not all in vain. You're not just like, oh my God, I'm in the same place. Like the sport's growing, I'm growing. So like I said, it's one of those things you never would feel entitled or deserving of something like that. But when you do it, it is almost a gratification of like, man, we work really hard. Like this is what we always dreamed of, you know, as fighters and I'm sure even media, like for this thing to be really, really mainstream and talked about the way it is and shown the way it is on major sport networks. And like, here we are. So it's one of those things you take in and you really just let inspire you and lets you know, keeps you grateful, keeps you grounded, keeps everything in perspective that you come a long way.
All right, I want to talk about your fight with Jussier Formiga in just a minute if I can, but of course this weekend is a bantamweight fight with flyweight champion Henry Cejudo and Marlon Moraes. Let me ask you, what's better for you if Henry wins or loses this bout this weekend?
I mean, I'm the kind of guy that tries to see positives in anything, so I'll make up a story, man. Like, if he wins, I'd make up a story how it's good. And if he loses, you know, I'll make up a story how it wins. But I think that's just a good thing to go through in life, like looking at something and being like, there is a good out of it. So for me, it's like if he wins, it's really good for maybe not me as an individual, but in a greater sense, the flyweight division. He goes and beats two amazing bantamweights, but for the future of the flyweight, you don't know what's going to happen because now he's a bantamweight champ. So there is some good there, but I think he would obviously be pushed to defend his flyweight title if he became bantamweight champion too. So who knows what good would come out of that, but that's the good for the flyweight division. On the individual basis, which that's probably what I should worry about, is if he loses, then he's the bantamweight champion, flyweight champion still. You know, his shot fell to being a bantamweight champion. He has to go defend his flyweight belt. I'm right there waiting for him when I get through Formiga. So that is a best case scenario on an individual basis. He loses and has to defend his flyweight title, which, you know, he should have been doing in the first place.
It's a weird time for flyweight. It's a weird time for you because here you are at the top of this division. You're on the precipice of a really important fight, and yet it's hard to know exactly what comes next. First of all, what do you make of the flyweights who got cut, Wilson Hayes and others? Your division and women's featherweight, I believe, are the only ones without a complete listing of the top 15 at this point.
Oh, yeah, I don't even know. I haven't looked at the rankings, but I knew guys were falling out like nothing, like crazy. I couldn't think of the right term, falling out like something. Anyway, but yeah, they were falling everywhere like flies, I guess. So I didn't know how many were left, but I saw guys kind of moving up in the ranking, and all of a sudden they're like 8 and 9, and I'm like, oh wow, seems like there might be only like 10 guys in this division, period. So it got kind of weird there, honestly, for a second. But it almost seems like it's cooled down, at least the talks and the cutting, and we're still making fights. And at first I thought, well, it's guys that are losing, they're leaving, and they don't have a really say on their contract. Like, that's how the contracts work, is you can't get caught off a win, but you can be forced to move up off a loss and be cut off a loss. So to tell you the truth, on the inside, I was having flyweights coming to me and telling me they are being forced and given options that either they go up or they get cut. which that's not an option. That means you're going up, right? Or you're getting cut. So that was kind of weird. But now, you know, after Dana said me and Formiga are the number one contender fight, that was kind of a big sign. And I was like, all right, well, if we're the only two left, we kind of have to be. But then they go and make two other fights with Figueiredo and Pantoja, and Figueiredo's coming off a loss. He still has a fight. And then I think they made another fight with another Brazilian, and he had lost. So, you know, they're still giving guys fights that lost. So I'm just looking at the next thing. The division's there, and there's a said number one contender fight that I'm a part of. So that's kind of what I look at. It's kind of hard to react to anything until it really happens. So what's happened is me fighting in 4 weeks for a number one contender fight.
Yeah, I mean, you seem like a grateful guy no matter what. So I'll ask it this way: is it a fine reality if you beat Jussier Formiga, you become number one contender, you end up fighting for the flyweight title, and maybe the flyweight division is just a smaller division, but it doesn't go away? Is that cool?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as it's one of those things where, like, I beat Henry for the fight, for the title, because he's the best guy, right? And he's proven he's the best. You know, he's an incredible competitor, beating TJ. You know, he's fighting Marlon, beat DJ. I want to prove I'm the best flyweight. Like, for instance, it wouldn't be that great for me if, say, Cejudo stayed at bantamweight as a champion and I beat someone. Like, I'm the best flyweight, but I'm just the best flyweight that's there now. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to beat someone that's the best right now, which is Henry. Prove that I can beat him again, since I already have a win over him years ago. Prove that I'm still there and I've improved just as he has. So, yeah, I mean, the reality would be fine, you know, as long as I'm fighting the divisions around and there's opportunity for guys like me. Like, that's a lot of the picture I look at. Like, when the flyweights are leaving, I'm like, I have a really amazing life. Like, I'm talking to you, you know, and doing a lot of cool stuff. I'm in a pretty nice car, like, got a house and stuff and a wife. And I just look at, there's guys like me everywhere that, like, might not have the opportunity to have that through professional fighting. And that, like, bums me out like crazy. Like, there's another me somewhere and he's not going to have the chance to do that. So, you know, I'll just be happy the division's around and guys are getting jobs and you know, athletes are getting what they've earned.
I asked this question in all good faith. Like, what do you expect to happen this weekend? I'll be truthful. I never thought Henry would beat TJ. I thought TJ would run through him, and then I was totally and completely wrong. At the same time, though, man, Marlon Moraes is a tough customer. My God, the things he is doing at bantamweight are scary. What is your sense about how that fight goes?
Yeah, I mean, Marlon's a creature for sure, and you kind of have to give him the advantage that it's at his weight. You know, he's a big bantamweight already. He's been terrorizing people at bantamweight. Like, it was kind of the same thing in the TJ and Henry fight. Like, I really did give Henry a somewhat of an advantage at flyweight because that's his weight, and TJ's the one making the adjustments. But on the same token, I probably would have gave TJ the advantage at bantamweight. So you kind of have to give Marlon the advantage, it being his division. That being said, Henry has done nothing to prove that he doesn't perform in big fights. You know, DJ, TJ, you know, Olympic gold medalist. So he's done nothing to deserve our doubt, you know, that he's going to lose. He hasn't shown anything in competition, high-level competition, that would make us think otherwise either. So the only thing you can really look at is, hey, you know, he's fighting out of his weight class and Marlon's in his weight class. You know, you can say all you want about, you know, how good they are in skills. We all know that. So you have to look at kind of like, all right, we know they're both, you know, world beaters and amazing athletes and killers. So you just kind of have to look at some of the practical things. Like, you take two really good guys, you know, and one guy's a little bigger, you know, he might have a bit of an advantage.
Let me catch up with you. What is your training situation like these days? How do you arrange your camp?
I live in Las Vegas, so I train here in Las Vegas. I work a lot out of the UFC PI for, like, strength and conditioning. It's kind of like a home base to hit mitts and stuff, but along with that, my home base as far as bodies, a team, coaches, and community go, I'm at Extreme Couture as well. My coaches are Eddie Baracco and Casey Halstead, 1 out of 10th Planet, and Eddie is just like my coach, not really affiliated with the gym. So, like, I'm leaving Extreme Couture right now, but I'm going to the UFC Performance Institute, and then later in the week I'll go to 10th Planet to do some jiu-jitsu with Coach Halstead. So, yeah, it's a little different. I think in Vegas, you see it a lot with people, is you're left to be self-motivated and accountable here for your own schedule, which that's great because it is an individual sport. And I've been part of a super team for so long that I didn't make my own schedule and my own time and my own coaches. I was just, this was the coach, this was the time, these were the partners. Here in Vegas, being a veteran and what the UFC PIs allowed me and just what my accomplishments in the past have allowed me is, I can get guys and, spar with 2 guys, not a mat full of 50 guys, or I can get one coach and have him run a practice for me because I have a facility like the PI to do that. So I wouldn't say I run my own thing, but I arrange my own schedule, and then my coaches more look out for me from there. So it's kind of cool. I think it's the way MMA is kind of leading to. You're kind of doing your own thing, but I always have a team. I have bodies and a great community around me, the Extreme Couture and the UFC PI. But it's one of those things in Vegas here. You have to be self-motivated. There's definitely no one, staying on you and stuff every day like you're in one place. You got to go make all your rounds, and good for me. I've never had a problem with being self-motivated and taking care of things myself. I like being my own person.
How did you decide that those particular coaches and this arrangement was the right one, given that there might be other options inside Las Vegas?
Oh, it was all trial and error. Like, I've been coming back to Vegas, back and forth for 8-9 years, training here and there, but doing my camps in Vegas, did a few camps in Denver. So it was all trial and error. I tell people when they move down, I'm like, hey, you can practice 10 times a day in Vegas. Like, there's that many credentials. There's that many things to do here. There's that many coaches. There's that many classes. But you can also practice no times because, you're not going to have someone here like, hey, where were you in the gym today? Because you could be somewhere else. You can get away with that stuff too. So it's a hard thing, I think, for some people to adapt to. For me, this is how it all worked out. Is I was coaching the Ultimate Fighter, so I had to stay here for a longer period of time. I really started to love the training in Vegas, and I was kind of finding my groove, how things worked. What really kept me here was Coach Robert Follis. I said, hey, I'm staying here no matter what. Like, this guy's incredible. I can feel myself improving. As we all know, tragically, he passed away, taking his own life. I think that broke everyone's heart around here, and it really left a lot of people that moved here for him not knowing what to do, me included, because I had moved here for him. But at the same time, I was like, all right, there's everybody else over here that cared about him, trying to kind of pick up the pieces. And we went through all that together, and it made everything like a little stronger. And at the same time, on that emotional side, I felt like I was physically and athletically growing as well because it was something new for me. And that's the way I think the sport is something is not always better than the other thing, but sometimes just something new is better. And that's kind of where I was at in my career, is I found new things and new people and people that really looked out for me and cared for me and were more focused on myself. And that's how I came to it. Just felt right,
Joe Rogan had a theory on his podcast that Kevin Lee probably never adapted after the loss of Robert Follis. Now, I'm not asking you to weigh in on that, but I guess what I would say is he did have a tremendous impact on a number of different fighters. Do you think it's possible that there are fighters out there still reeling who never really they were never able to adapt from his absence?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things is Follis there's one Robert Follis ever. Like, I have trained years. I've been at the top of the game, and at 10 years, 13 years into my career, I found a coach that I was like, oh my God, still learning amazing things from, on a mental, physical, like spiritual side, everything. So I wouldn't say there's like no coming back from it and stuff, but people are affected and you can see the effects. And I don't think that speaks to the fighters being this or not being able to adapt or anything like that. I think it just speaks to how amazing Follis was, if anything.
Before I let you go, sort of one question. I don't know what your relationship was like. The last time I spoke to you was the show in Brooklyn, I believe. Your Dustin Ortiz fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard from personally, TJ? Are you spoken to him at all since then?
I haven't spoke to him. I mean, even in Brooklyn, it had probably been a year or two since we talked, and definitely about 2 years since we did any kind of training together, and probably over a year since we talked before that Brooklyn fight. So there was already a lot of separation there. There was no real, there was no event or anything that did it. It was just over time, not being the same people and things of that nature that, so yeah, we hadn't talked about in a long time, even before that Brooklyn fight.
So I know this is fair enough. I know this is a weird question, but it's just one I have to ask because it's been on my mind. Now, maybe the timelines don't line up, so I don't understand the chronography. But I saw people, not just you, but other people at Team Alpha Male at the time being like, oh, yeah, we all knew TJ was on something. Why not tell USADA? That's how they actually bust people.
Yeah. Well, the thing for that, when I was at Alpha Male, USADA wasn't around. Okay. And then there's another thing that I think people don't realize is, I came out in an interview and I was like, I'm surprised it took this long. There's a difference between knowing, thinking, assuming through all the hints and coincidences that happen, like a bunch of coincidences and stuff. You know what police call that is evidence, right? But there is a difference between having evidence, seeing things, and knowing things and seeing it. Did people see TJ shoot up in the bathroom and go out and to a fight? No. But I think what everyone's saying is they all assumed he was doing it. And even for me, things he had told me and hints and stuff he'd given me, and it was almost like one of those things that was a badly kept secret. If you know, you know what I mean? It's like a badly kept secret, but you don't know. And as a peer, there's not much you can honestly do. At that time, like I said, there wasn't USADA, but you can accuse your own peer of it and ruin something, make something weird, or say it all does go well. I believe there was a sit down and an accusation at Alpha Male. So for everyone saying, oh, you didn't do anything, I remember Faber having an actual sit down with him to the point of hey, this can't be going on, and these are the rumors, this and that. And but like I said, as a peer, we're not USADA. Faber's not going to piss test him and say, hey, you can't come in the gym, I just tested your piss. So it was just one of those things, a badly kept secret. It's such a gray area that people don't realize. It's not black and white of he was doing it, get him busted, or you don't know he was doing it at all. It's not one of those things. You can always assume, but there's a huge difference between knowing and seeing and thinking and all that. And that's kind of what it was for everybody. Everyone was kind of heard rumors, heard enough to the point, and known him long enough and seen episodes and stuff in the gym where everyone kind of figured he was, but it was one of those things what are you going to go do? Go hey, TJ, give me your piss and stop. So I think that's what it comes down to. So it's such a polarizing subject that you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. I simply went out there and I said, hey, I wanted to put myself on the side that I think he was using longer than this. And people take that as, oh, he was using longer than this. I'm like, no, I'm putting myself on the side that I thought he was. And there's a difference between thinking, assuming, and seeing a guy do it,
Well, I appreciate your candor on this topic and all the other ones. That is very clarifying. So thank you. I got to tell you, man, I cannot wait for your fight. Jussier Formiga. It's going to be June 29th at the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's the co-main event on ESPN. So I don't know what's going to happen with this flyweight division, but you're at the top of it. I know that. We appreciate your time.
It's a good sign. Appreciate you, Luke.